How do VAVs work? I'm going to go over what I see as the 4 basic modes for VAV operation. This is our VAV right here. It's a zone level piece of equipment, meaning it's going to control the temperature and conditions in the zone. VAV stands for variable air volume because this thing varies the volume of the air. Now, a VAV is composed of a control box, a plenum, but most importantly, a damper right here, which is the means of varying the air volume. It's going to be connected to a thermostat, which is going to give it its reading for the temperature in the space and ultimately give it the commands on what mode this VAV should be operating in. Upstream of your VAV, you're going to have medium pressure ductwork, ultimately going back to a central unit. So this air here is preconditioned going into the VAV. And downstream of the VAV, you're going to have low pressure ductwork and ultimately supply diffusers leading to the space. So let's go over the basic modes that this VAV will be operating in and see what it does. Mode 1 is cooling, meaning it is hot in the space and this thermostat is reading a temperature higher than the set point, and it's going to tell the VAV to go into cooling mode. Now, we've got this conditioned air going to the VAV, so this air is already cold, and all the VAV needs to do is open up this damper to allow more airflow through. And we're varying the air. It's going to increase the airflow going into the space. You get more cold air and it will satisfy the cooling requirement. It will stay in this mode until the temperature in this space drops below the set point set by the thermostat. Now, once the thermostat is satisfied, it's going to tell the VAV to back off and go back into minimum. So with conditions satisfied, this VAV can now close this damper and reduce the amount of airflow going to the space so as not to overcool the space. Now, the reason this is called minimum and not off is because this damper will never be fully closed. You always need a minimum amount of air going to the space to satisfy your ventilation requirements. People need oxygen. They need fresh air going into the space. So now with mode 2, we're at minimum. Now, what do you do if the minimum amount of air is still too much and you're still overcooling the space? This brings us to mode 3. This mode requires a reheat coil. So it's only an option if your VAV has a reheat coil. In mode 3, maintaining the temperature, once we reach the minimum airflow, if it's still too cold, this valve right here on the heating side will open up and start to reheat that air. So you'll have warmer air going into the space, and that will be used to maintain comfortable conditions. Now, mode 4, heating, can occur if the temperature in the space is still dropping, even though we have this warm air trying to maintain the space. This typically happens in exterior spaces where there's a big external heating load that's affecting this space, and now this space needs to go into heating, even though the rest of your system might still be in cooling mode. It's not as common, but it can happen in zones with large exposures. In heating mode, the valve here is going to increase the heating from the coil to warm up the air even further, and if that's not enough, then this damper will reopen to allow more airflow to go through and more warm air to enter the space until the thermostat is happy. But take note, that mode is when this zone is in heating while the rest of the system is still in cooling. So you're reheating cold air to accomplish heating for just this zone. If all of the zones are in heating, then your system, your central unit, will go into heating mode. Then you're going to get warm air entering the VAV and your reheat coil won't have to do all that work.